All right.
Great. Well, can you introduce yourself to our site visitors?
Sure. Hi, I'm Vivek J Tiwary, and I'm the author of The Fifth Beatle, the Brian Epstein story.
Well, it is such an honor to speak with you and this news about the movie and everything.
Thank you. It's very kind of you.
Can you share some details? I know it's going into production now.
Yeah, so the movie is, we are in active development, active pre-production, somewhere between development and pre-production is probably the best way of putting it. We are looking into cast right now. The most exciting. I wish I could tell you who we're talking to. I can't.
It'll be a surprise.
Well, I actually was very much hoping that we would have the lead, Brian Epstein, nailed down to announce by San Diego, but we don't quite yet. So please stay tuned. Please follow us at Fifth Beatle on Twitter and Fifth Beatle at Facebook, and we will announce the news, I think, shortly. But unfortunately, I can't get into that right now. But the most exciting news on the film is that we have secured the approval of the Beatles, meaning Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Yoko Ono, and Olivia Harrison have all signed off on the project, which means we have access to Beatles music for the film. We are literally the first and only biopic in history to have secured Beatles music, so it's a great honor and also a great responsibility. But it's one that we're really proud of.
So
thank you.
How surreal is that when you were putting the story together and everything? I mean, did you ever dream one day that they would be signing off on a film for this?
Do you know?
I mean, even from a fan perspective.
Yeah, no, I have to say that the truth is, that side of it, I knew that they would. I really did. This project is a real labor of love for me, and I think a large part of the Brian Epstein story, or the message of the Brian Epstein story, is to chase your dreams. Is that no dream is too big or too impossible. Brian Epstein was a gay Jewish kid from a dirty port town in the north of England who said he found a local band who was going to be bigger than Elvis. People thought he was crazy, but that was his dream, and he chased it with passion and persistence, and realized it spectacularly, and the world got the Beatles. So in the same way, for me, the Brian Epstein story was a dream, and a dream that I chased with passion and persistence, and I knew that it would happen. I have to be honest, with securing the Beatles music rights, I knew that I was going to get them. I wasn't sure how long it was going to take. I wasn't sure how much heartache I was going to incur, but I knew I was going to get them. I will say, though, that a handful of months ago, we got a note from Paul McCartney who said how much he loved the graphic novel, and he in particular commented on Andrew Robinson's art, how beautiful it was, and that I never dreamed of. That was a moment to get a note from Paul McCartney saying that he admired something that I did. That was a very surreal experience that I would say I didn't imagine that would ever happen. But the music rights, I kind of knew in my heart of hearts that I would find a way.
So when did you first develop a love for the Beatles music, and then make the decision ultimately that you wanted to share Brian's story?
Yeah, so it really, the Beatles side of it all really goes back to birth. My parents were huge Beatles fans. I often joke that I was listening to the Beatles before I was born because they were playing. They were.
With you.
That's it. I actually dedicated the Fifth Beatle to my mom and to Brian Epstein's mom, and for my mom, she was the one that gave me my love of the Beatles, and incidentally, on a side note, also my love of comics. Some of my earliest memories of reading we called it Tom, but Tintin books with my mom. So it really, the Beatles goes back to my parents. My house was full of the music of the Beatles. But the Brian Epstein story I discovered when I was in business school in Philadelphia. I went to UPenn and the Wharton School of Business, not far from you guys. And while I was there in Philly, I was dreaming about working in entertainment, and I thought I should study the lives of the great entertainment visionaries. And being a lifelong Beatles fan and somebody who believed that the Beatles and Brian wrote and rewrote the rules of the pop music business, I thought I should study the life of Brian Epstein. So that's kind of what led me to a study of Brian, because it really is Brian's story. But my love of the Beatles came from my parents from childhood.
Absolutely. So, in what ways do you feel that music and comics can go hand in hand? Because we're seeing a lot of that. And, I love the visual element that you can put to different things. And, I feel like for a while the art and music video and stuff was dying, and now it's coming back.
No question, yeah. It's funny because you asked about where I got my love of the Beatles, and I said it was through my parents, and it was through my parents' vinyl. because they listened to records. And I distinctly remember sitting in front of their record player, putting those Beatles records on, and while I was listening to the music, studying the album covers. And as you know, those latter Beatles records have very intricate, beautiful covers, like Sgt. Pepper's Magical Mystery Tour.
Don't you miss that?
You
No,
know,
I do miss
totally.
that now.
And to me, it was almost like a primitive music video. Like in my head, imagining what was going on in those album covers and listening to the music. And I think right now it's a tremendously exciting time for the convergence of pop music and comics. And in fact, I'm on a panel tomorrow with Marky Ramone, which is another dream come true for me because I grew up listening to the
saw that, and I
Ramones.
was
I'm
like,
like, oh my God, I'm doing a panel with Marky Ramone at San Diego Comic-Con talking about the Fifth Beatle. It's like there's so many levels of teenage dreams coming true in that.
I think it's so awesome to see that is starting to come into the convention environment, and
very cool.
and it really is expanding the fan base out to people that probably may or may not have been aware of the
very
story
cool.
before.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. But I feel like pop music and comics share a lot of things in common. They are both art forms that I think over the years have struggled to be taken seriously. Comics, inherent in the word comics is comic. For a long time people thought the comics were the funny pages. They were silly, they were disposable. Inherent in pop is, bubble popping or pop soda. It's something that's disposable and cheap and sugary. And I think, Brian Epstein always said that the Beatles were going to elevate pop music into an art form. That was one of his dreams. And I feel like pop music has struggled to be taken seriously as an art form while reveling in that struggle, reveling in being sort of an underdog in the art community. And I feel comics are the same. Comics has struggled to be taken seriously as an art form, but also kind of proud. There's a certain pride that comic creators take in that struggle, and so I think the crossovers are rich, and it's a very, very exciting time for that. I'm really thrilled that the book has been nominated for 2 Eisners, and last year, one of the Eisner winners was thank you. But last year, one of the Eisner winners was a book about the Carter family. Was Don't Forget That Song, and it's a wonderful time. Both books about music as well as musicians writing comics. I mean, we're seeing so much more of that. And anyway, I'm babbling on and on, but it's to me, I came out of the music industry. My first jobs were working for record labels, and so I'm very passionate about bringing these 2 art forms together.
Oh, absolutely. So I have to ask what's going on with Jagged Little Pill and Broadway.
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking. Yeah. So my background really is in Broadway producing, and I'm very actively working with Alanis Morissette to adapt Jagged Little Pill for the stage. Tom Kitt is attached to do orchestrations and arrangements. Tom is amazing. He won the Pulitzer and the Tony for Next to Normal, and he also did orchestrations and arrangements for me for American Idiot. I produced Green Day's American Idiot, and we are in discussions with writers right now for Jagged Little Pill. I hope within the next few months I'll be able to announce our writer, and I hope that there will be something to share with the world maybe by the end of next year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I feel like that album was such a pivotal album of the time period that it came out, and it does tell a whole story.
I feel very blessed and excited. I just on my last outing on Broadway was working with Green Day on American Idiot, which I also think was a really a masterpiece, kind of pivotal album of its time. And to follow that up with working with Alanis Morissette on Jagged Little Pill, which I agree with you, is just such an important record, and an important record with a strong female voice, which is something that I don't think Broadway has enough of. And so I'm really excited about it for that reason as well.
I saw it, I was like, what? No, that's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I definitely want to thank you so much for taking a few minutes to speak with me.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah, thank you for wanting to talk to me. I mean, my projects are all labors of love, and so anytime anybody wants to talk to me, I get very excited about it. So
Awesome.
So thank you for being interested.
Definitely. I cannot wait to see the movie. Can't wait to see Broadway. I'm excited.